into society. It's a big part of society. It's just as equal as university. It is part of university, even more so, to be honest with you. And big major part of our culture that I'm seeing in my ancestry how important the Asafo companies are for every single community and the training that everybody goes through and then selected to be part of the Asafo company. Like, it's amazing. And these are Asafo companies along the coast. Now, they have things, especially the Fantis, they're specialized in Asafo. Like, they were like, because of being the middlemen between the Asante and the British and Dutch and the British, all kind of stuff. They really warrior-like people, had to be always in constant war. So their Safo companies were a big part of life. There's a lot of interwar people fighting against each other, just like you see right now in Jamaica and in the West, and same thing. So they specialize in these things called Asafo flags, which represented your company. You represent with your flag, your logo and stuff. So your warrior band, these are the early day warrior bands. You would see them, bullying the Europeans and the British and the Dutch, and they have symbols of animals and leopards and of them running them out, chasing them out, and then all of a sudden, and then 1874 and afterwards, you start to see them have the uh, Union Jack on the corner of them, and then you even start to see the symbolisms in them change. Look, hands up. You see a bunch of white and black people hands up. Look, like, this is like brother on brother crime. Fafo companies. It's weird. See, like some animal that's tied to a stool, some big monster dragon. Dragons were a big thing too. And then after 57, when Kwame Nkrumah freed them, and they have their own independent sovereign state, they start to put the Ghana flag on, and then see now, as you can see here now, they have some Ghanaians monitoring the European pouring water on the cactus or something like that. And just a note, just a reference to my life. Before knowing this, I've been created my own martial arts school training team, and I myself have been a lifelong martial artist and almost lifelong. And I got a couple belts and still training and becoming MMA practitioner, fighter, and coach, trainer. So this is our logo, banner, and stuff. And look, um, it has the Adinkra symbol for courage on the top. Before I even got my results, it's the courage, and here's my symbolism: the father lion, lioness, and the cub, and us roaring, like warriors, and that's my Asafo flag. So I guess I knew what I was doing, and that's our company right there, right? And this is just little stuff to show, little stuff to In terms of the slavery in the West, the most significant is saying here can be attributed to the Ashanti Fanti Wars, which produced a lot of to the European slaves. The Fanti British War, the Dutch Ashanti War, the again Fanti Ashanti War, the British Ashanti War. Like there's a lot of wars going on, and which creates prisoners of wars, aka slaves. So it makes sense, right? Now, so it creates a lot of slaves, and we're here talking about my ancestry, and I know we're from Jamaica, Cuba, so what the heck's going on here? How did we get here? And it makes kind of sense. There's a term called the Coromantes that it's the name in the West and all the documentation and slave documentation, slavery days documentation, transatlantic slave trade documentation that um, Coromantee was the name that they categorized all the Khans under because they majorly came from the coast, the Fanti coast, out of that port and the ports around there, Armenia and other ones too. Now, it's not an accurate classification because again, there's different sub tribes within the Akan, so mm, it's very difficult. And then there's possibilities for oral history that people could have been sold out of that region and not necessarily been from closest region there, which is Akan land. They could have come from outside, you know what I mean? But anyway, or come from another slave castle and transported to that one, and then like a smaller one transported to the big one here and then transported out. Those are less likely, but of course that did happen, and then most likely, and then the ones that came from there anyway. There's a region. Anyway. The people they call Coromantee came from. There's a region on the coast of Fantiland, right where Armenia is and all that stuff. There's actually a sub tribe named the uh, Cromansi, and the British admit that they got the name for their slave castle after they took it over, and they call it Coromantee. So hence why all these stories, which you'll see coming up now, Coromantees are the most famous freedom fighters in the Western Hemisphere um, during the transatlantic slave trade and afterwards. So anyway, Coromantine would be the topic, and here's a little history on it. You can read up. Some people along the coast, Coromantine, so these would be Fantis, but they're a Khan same way, and were a Khan before there was an Ashanti a Khan. Some more information. Now the thing about Jamaica and Ghana, one blood, one language, and Cromanti language of the Jamaican Maroons are similar to a Khan. There's a big thing going on right now, and we're going to get into that right now. How is that possible? Well, if you check the times, not everybody that came to Jamaica and Cuba were from one region, Akan. But why is it such a big dominance of Akan culture and language in Jamaica, Maroons, and spread into, and also in just the average Jamaican? If you check the dates, it's the timings. It was, you know, the Akans, Jamaica was heavily populated by, according to the stats and the ship records, by, Congo people earlier, and Igbos, and then afterwards there was a big wave of Akans during, and they matched the times of the wars between the Fanti Akan, and then the British Fanti, and the Dutch Ashanti, and then finally the British Ashanti wars. It's just perfectly matched, and as you can see here, so it's not just me saying it. And also, this is just speaking about how Cuba and Jamaica, where there's a big network going on between Cuba and Jamaica, all the way back going up until today. My family lives on the coast, and they still have people coming from Cuba into the family. It's weird. There's a lot of slave rebellions attached to the Cormantes. The Taki Rebellion, which happened in 1760, which was like the most significant rebellion in the Caribbean until the Haitian Revolution. in 1790. So this happened in 1760. His name is Taki, and he's known to be a Cromanti. Look that up. That's a big, huge, huge story. They call it the Taki War, and this just set the trend. Within this war now, there's a soldier, there's a warrior named Bookman, Doti Bookman, known for, they call him a Obia or Voodoo Man or whatever, but he's a Cromanti Maroon, and he came from Jamaica during the Taki War and spread the vibes now to Haiti. Then, bam, Toussaint and all these mans, and they just rose up and they took back over Haiti, and now Haiti's free. Haiti's a big Maroon movement. So, yes, the Maroons. So, here's some info on the origins in the early days from even 1655 during Spanish times and going on. And then there's the famous era with the Maroons and King Cujo, Captain Cujo, Captain Okompong, Captain Kofi, Captain Johnny, Queen Nanny, and famous story. There's just a little bit more details about it that are misconceptions out there, but that's okay when you do the research, or when I do this over in final edit, I'll have a lot more detailed information in terms of that. Now, there's a book out there, Nani's Asafo Warriors, and in it talks a lot about how in actuality that you can most likely, even she's definitely a Khan, but she most likely might be Fanti opposed to Ashanti, but it's still possible Ashanti, but it doesn't even matter, they're the same people. So that's what this book talks about, and how coincidentally they use the Asafo warriors concept, and this is the story of it, you know what I mean. And just to throw in a little reference with myself, I became a Rastafari, and in particular Bobo Shanti. And if you do your research on them, you'll know that they are a modern day Maroon movement, and I mean even physically. Um, yeah, check that out, Bobo Shanti, and was that for a long time. Still walk with the principles in my heart. So Bobo means black and African, and Shanti means warrior. So they call themselves Bobo Ashanti anyway. Made sense. So I'm always was always that warrior. So I guess blood don't forget. And anyway, here's a little bit of story how it's like the same kind of fancy thing. Each one of the brothers ruled their own Maroon region, had their own Asafo, band, and so story is that one of them brothers kind of made deals with the British, and then, well, actually, the story is Captain Cujo made an actual deal with the British, and not all the other bands agreed with it. And then there's another one named, another brother named Kofi, who they're saying is actually Captain Sambo, who's known to have killed Cujo, and then the rest of them were taken to Nova Scotia and started the Maroons in Nova Scotia that became Afriqueville, and started hockey in Nova Scotia and Canada and Montreal. And Montreal is a hockey team named the Montreal Maroons in 1928. Black people invented hockey, don't get it twisted. And so Bang Horn, and just a little reference, me picked up the harmonica, and yeah, that's what we do. Makes sense. And family names, I found this very interesting amongst the Fanti. Um, Deal with the patriarchal lines, and then after the British took over, and then this is modern Fanti now, and it's just like here. There's like a Western thing took over. So what a lot of them did was took Fanti words, names, and then they mixed them with the English concepts of like, if you're the son of the carpenter, the word for carpenter in Fanti would then you would what would it be in English? And or you could alter the Fanti word to more anglicize it, and then it become that son. Like, um, if you look up here, they have Aboma means hawk. And since the Fanti man knows his name is Hawk, he wants to now get into the European trade and business, Western life. He now changed his name, as you see enough of them do, and his name is now Hawkson. So I don't know. Our slave last name label was Thompson. So I don't know. Gotta look into that more. And um, dealing with this tree language thing, and 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 know learning more about it. And I don't know if it was 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. My ex, a Akan Ashanti sister, gave me out of the blue a tree language course book and CD, and it cost a couple $100. Just gave it to me. Bam. I guess it was I was doing a lot of my research and stuff like that about my history. I was very interested, but it's hard because I couldn't get so far. So I don't know. They probably looked at it. I know she told me they look at it like poor you guys. You guys are searching so hard to find something so simple that they don't even really see as something that important. But I guess if you don't have it, it's important type vibe. So I've always had this Pippin tree language, how to speak tree, thick textbook. It's a course. It's not just a little, vocabulary book. It's like, okay, I can speak tree if I want to, and I can obviously learn Fanti very easily. And here's how the language groups grow. So like all the red right there, Akan is part of a big language group, which is Kwa, which is part of this whole Niger Congo language group. So all of them, the Yorubas and the Mali languages and the everything, Liberia's is all the same language. All the same language, and there's just a bunch of dialects. So let's talk about this now. The Jamaican Maroon Possession Language, Spirit Possession Language, or they call it Maroon Spirit